Military history is filled with official equipment lists, standardized loadouts, and doctrine-approved gear. On paper, issued equipment represented the best thinking of armies and engineers. In reality, soldiers quickly learned that survival didn't always align with what was handed to them. Across wars and generations, troops quietly relied on a different category of tools, items chosen not for regulation compliance, but for reliability under stress. These were not necessarily better looking or more advanced. They were trusted because they worked when conditions collapsed. Trust was earned through failure, not design. Issued gear was designed in offices, tested under controlled conditions, and distributed at scale. Survival tools were chosen in the field, often after official equipment failed. Soldiers trusted what survived mud, cold, sand, neglect, and exhaustion. When a piece of issued equipment broke repeatedly or required constant maintenance, it was quietly replaced with something simpler. Over time, patterns emerged. Certain tools appeared again and again in personal kits, regardless of theatre or era. Trust came from experience, not specifications. Simple cutting tools, honestly, mattered more than weapons. While rifles and pistols dominated official focus, soldiers consistently relied on basic cutting tools for survival. Knives, hatchets, and improvised blades were used far more often for daily survival tasks than for combat. Cutting cordage, shaping shelter materials, preparing food, repairing gear, clearing brush were constant needs. Issued bayonets were often too long, awkward, or just plain impractical for these tasks. Many soldiers, favored personal knives they could control easily and maintain without specialized tools. The trusted cutting tool was not the most lethal. It was the most useful when tired, cold, and working with numb hands. Cordage quietly replaced broken systems. One of the most trusted survival tools was cordage in various forms: rope, twine, wire, bootlaces, and later parachute line. Issued straps, buckles, and fasteners failed regularly. Cordage fixed what broke. Soldiers used it to repair packs, reinforce shelters, secure loads, improvise stretchers, and replace damaged webbing. It weighed little, took up minimal space, and solved dozens of problems. This wasn't accidental. Cordage offered flexibility in a world where rigid systems failed. Soldiers trusted it because it adapted to uncertainty. Right, so containers actually mattered more than what was inside them. Issued containers were often fragile or just not really built for the kind of abuse they'd see in the field. Soldiers quickly learned to value durable containers, like metal canteens, cups, tins, and even improvised vessels, over whatever they were actually meant to carry. A container could carry water, cook food, store supplies, protect small items, and sometimes even serve as a digging or signaling tool. Food would run out, ammunition was expended, but containers remained useful long after their original purpose was, fulfilled. Survival in the end favored objects that, retained value after their initial role had ended. Clothing modifications really outperformed standard issue, Uniforms were designed mostly for appearance, standardization, and supply efficiency, but soldiers modified them for survival. They cut, layered, reinforced, and altered clothing constantly. Extra socks were, honestly, treasured more than spare ammunition in cold and wet environments. Scarves, rags, and improvised wraps help manage sweat, protect skin, and prevent injury. Soldiers trusted clothing they could adapt over issued items that forced fixed use. Comfort was definitely secondary. Function really mattered. Personal repair tools, really became lifelines for soldiers. Often these small repair kits actually mattered more than the official spares they were issued. With just needles, thread, wire, tape, and a few small tools, soldiers could maintain what they had instead of always relying on replacements. Boots that were repaired right there in the field kept men on the move. When packs were stitched back together, it preserved their ability to carry essential supplies. And weapon slings or straps, fixed with whatever was at hand, prevented both loss and sometimes serious injury. These simple tools, honestly, extended the life of almost everything else. Soldiers put a lot of trust in them because they stopped those small failures from turning into something absolutely catastrophic. Fire tools earned loyalty quickly. Fire meant warmth, food, water safety, and, morale. Issued ignition systems were not always reliable. Soldiers carried backups, matches sealed against moisture, improvised tinders, and, later on, simple mechanical lighters. Fire-starting tools were protected obsessively. Soldiers trusted what could be used with cold hands in wind and under stress. Anything delicate or complex was, discarded once it failed. Fire capability was survival capability. Knowledge replaced equipment when weight really mattered. Perhaps the most trusted tool soldiers carried was, knowledge itself. How to read terrain, how to manage exposure, how to ration effort, and, of course, how to remain calm under pressure. When loads became just too heavy, physical tools were dropped first, but knowledge remained. Soldiers who survived isolation relied less on what they carried and more on, what they actually knew. This is exactly why veteran accounts emphasize skills over gear. Tools enhance capability, sure, but skills, they sustained it. Issued equipment was designed to satisfy doctrine, logistics, and uniformity. Survival tools, on the other hand, evolved to satisfy reality, and when the two conflicted, reality won. Soldiers abandoned items that required perfect conditions, frequent resupply, or careful handling. Instead, they trusted items that worked dirty, wet, cold, and even broken. This pattern appears in every conflict. It's not really an indictment of military design, but rather a reminder that survival happens at the human level, not the organizational one. The tools soldiers trusted most were rarely impressive. Honestly, they were simple, adaptable, and forgiving of mistakes. They reduced effort instead of increasing it, and they functioned without attention. Modern survival culture often chases innovation, but military history suggests something quieter and honestly more durable. Trust what works when everything else fails. Issued gear reflects planning. Trusted tools reflect experience. And in survival, experience, it always has the final say.